day, I wake up knowing that the more people I try to save, the more enemies I will make.
When you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
Whatever life holds in store for me, I will never forget these words. With great power comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
Welcome, Marvel fans, to episode 15 of Marvelcast, a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast by fans for fans. Each week, we will discuss the latest news regarding the MCU, followed by reviews and discussion of the latest released content in this ever-expanding multiverse. Our audience is a key component to our show, and we will wrap up each week by answering your Marvel-related questions. I'm your host, JG, and joined by me today is my co-host, Steven. Steven, it's finally here. We are at December, and man, we have a crazy month. How are you?
I am great. It's good to be back after a little Thanksgiving break. But JG, I got to give you all the props. You know, this was your idea to do Month of Spider-Man. I love the opening intro, and I hope our audience was kind of caught off guard. You caught me off guard when you shared it with me today. It's awesome, and I think it really sets the tone for making this month separate. You know, we're on episode 15. We're going strong, and I can't wait that the next 3 or 4 weeks are going to be focused solely on Spider-Man.
I agree. It's super exciting, you know, like this idea just kind of came out of nowhere, but it feels like the right thing to do with what's turning out to be probably a very monumental movie, dedicating this whole month to Spider-Man. It's so exciting. And yeah, I'm so glad that turned out really well. So normally we would actually hop right into talking about that story on Marvel, but we just have so much that we have to talk about that we're just going to put it on pause for this week, probably bring it back next week. We'll see. But it is a book that we're still digging into. It actually was recently on sale through the Abrams publisher. So just keep an eye out. It's going to be probably on sale. I'm not sure if it still is, but look around during the holiday season. If you have that special someone who loves Marvel, this will be an incredible gift that will just make their jaw drop when they open that up on Christmas. But we do start every week off with a bunch of news stories. And today we actually had some breaking news right before we started recording. Deadline was reported that Kobe Smulders is to reprise the role of Maria Hill in the Marvel series Secret Invasion. Once again, we're just going to continue getting news and casting updates about this show, which is, I keep saying, it's such an incredible cast. What are your thoughts on this? I think you actually pointed out something interesting that you'll probably bring up.
Yeah, first of all, you know, that's the thing I love about Marvel. And this, you know, if we think about it, I can't even imagine. We have to have over 100 actors when we think about our main cast and our side cast throughout the MCU, at least 100. And so the fact that you're able to bring in these characters every couple of years, you know, that kind of can pop in and out of different projects, this is a perfect place for Maria Hill to return. You know, we haven't seen her since help me out, Age of Ultron. We've seen her since then.
Yeah,
because I know
it's Civil War.
Was she in Civil War?
Yeah, I think she's in Civil War.
Let's double check that. Can you check that while
Yeah.
I'm sharing something?
Yeah.
So I know, like, I was gonna say Spider-Man Far From Home, but that's not her, because that was the Kree, or excuse me, the Skrull version of Maria Hill that was with Nick Fury that we thought was her the whole time. So I don't remember the last time we've seen Maria Hill in person, but I'm wondering which version we're gonna get. When was the last place besides Far From Home we saw Tobey Smulders?
So looking at the deadline thing, it's unclear, because like we have like the whole scroll thing and then we have the proper, but just quoting what they say here, it just says Smulders has reprised the role in several Marvel pictures, including Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America Civil War, and every Avengers film. And so she thinks so. I guess the most recent one would have been Far From Home then. But again, it's the scroll, but still same character.
Yeah, I'm looking on IMDb. She was also in What If. I guess I forgot she was in Endgame at the funeral scene, I guess, and then during the Infinity War post-credit scene, uncredited. So she's had a couple of appearances.
Every Avenger film.
Yeah, I don't see, and I could be wrong, I don't see Civil War on here, so I don't know if that was a typo on there or not. But I do see, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a couple episodes. Age of Ultron was really the last one besides her quick little appearances in Infinity War and Endgame. So I'm excited to see her back for sure. And with Nick Fury, those two go together. Absolutely.
It just makes a lot of sense. I think it's one of those things that we kind of, if you know the character, you kind of like, yep, it makes sense that she's gonna fill in here. Well, we actually have some more exciting news moving forward. Actually, a film that we haven't really talked about much, and it's probably still a little bit away, but it's something I'm super personally excited about because of the third one, Thor and Love and Thunder. We got a little bit of a little tease from a artist, Andy Park. It is crazy and wild. Paul Shirey of Screen Rant had an exclusive from artist Andy Park where he said, there's a reason why there's been over a decade of successful movies and just why this franchise is growing. So Thor Love and Thunder falls right into where it's just pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable and what should be expected. You'll be surprised and push these characters and visuals go along with that. I think what TD said it in some interview where he's just like, he's surprised that he shouldn't be allowed to make a movie like this. And I get it. This movie is crazy wild. It's so much fun. And I simply cannot wait for everyone to see it because it was so much fun to work on and design so many characters and do keyframes for. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun. Steven, we've had a little bit of teases, but it's been pretty quiet for this film for the most part. What are your thoughts about these comments? Are you looking forward to this film?
Yeah, I am. It's only about 8 months away, right? It's in July next year. They pushed it back to July. And the way I'm hearing this and the way it's being described, it almost makes me feel like Ragnarok is going to be the tame one. Even though that one was so vibrant, so much fun, so much heart and humor in it. I mean, if you look at Thor from Thor and Thor Dark World, and you look at the character in Ragnarok and how he played out into Infinity War and Endgame, it's two completely different characters. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying I think that was the smart decision to kind of reinvent the character instead of sticking with the Shakespearean, attitude that he had, maybe the characteristics in the first couple appearances. So I'm really excited to see maybe this was that was Taika Waititi's Ragnarok, his like springboard, and now they give him a blank check to do whatever he wants, and I trust in him. Some of his non-MCU work, I don't know if you saw Jojo Rabbit, I thought that was incredible with Scarlett Johansson as well, and the way he directed a movie where he's also playing an imaginary in your head version of Adolf Hitler and still makes it so that it's such a good movie. I really can't wait to see what he does with this.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit is one of my all-time favorites. I'm glad you mentioned that. Definitely check it out. And so continuing with that, I am excited to see what he does. I personally am one of those people where I love Thor 1. And there's something about the character. I don't know if it's maybe the space element or what. I love that. And even when it comes to Dark World, and I know it's it's a film that not many people like, and a lot of people say that it's a bad film. For me personally, I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was super funny on my Facebook memory a couple of weeks ago or whatever. There was a memory saying where I had posted, I said on Facebook when this movie came out, it was one of my favorites, and I was like, wow, that was a bold statement to say. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. Ragnarok's my favorite of the three, and it was super funny, super vibrant. The characters were just wild. You could tell it had Waititi all over it. As soon as I saw Jojo Rabbit after that, I was like, oh, yes. Which gets me excited for what he's going to do with Star Wars. So overall, this film cannot come soon enough. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. Moving forward, talk about a film that just recently came out. I will just say before we get into this, in case you haven't seen it, we are going to be talking about a major spoiler for Eternals. If you, for some reason, have not seen it, which I doubt if you're listening to this, you haven't, but just on the safe side, move forward 3 to 5 minutes and then continue listening to the show. You've been warned. So Eternals writer has confirmed that Icarus is really dead. Speaking to comic book resources, writer Kaz Firpost stated, it began as an exile that I think throughout the course of filmmaking, it really became something that needed to be definitive. He added, it really is a moment of saying it's a sacrifice. It's a sort of saying, I can't serve the Eternals. If I can't serve the Celestials and I can't be with my family, then I choose the third option, which for him really is Oblivion. So yeah, he dead. Steven, we had theorized about this. We had talked about this. Do you take this as concrete as this writer is saying, or with the multiverse and the chaos and everything, do you think there's still a possibility we could see Icarus?
I think that the version that we followed for 2.5 hours, that Icarus is dead. I definitely think, like we've speculated before, you and I, that we know that their memories are stored elsewhere. And could we see another version of Icarus? Sure. Does it have to be a variant from another multiverse? Not necessarily. It could be, in Eternals 2, Eternals 3. I mean, what would be interesting too is, you can bring those memories back, and maybe you don't have all your memories. So maybe you're not as knowledgeable as this Icarus that we followed. Maybe you don't know and have the same beliefs. It'd be interesting to see Richard Madden play kind of a different version of the character. So I don't think it's the last we'll see of Icarus, but I think it's the last we'll see of that version of Icarus from the first Eternals movie. What about you?
I kind of take it as concrete that he is dead, as he says pretty blatantly. For me personally, I think it's a bummer though, because I don't want him to be, just because I think Richard Madden is an incredible actor. And I think that I don't want to say it's wasted, because I think he is used so very well in Eternals, but it's only 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I know death is important and death is significant. We can't always have, everything continue to live on. But it would be nice. It would be nice to see more of Richard Madden playing Icarus, or even just Richard Madden in general. Maybe do something similar, like I think it was Cersei, not Cersei, yeah, Cersei's actress. She had a different role. She was in Captain Marvel, and so I the fan in me is part of myself is like, I want him to be alive so we can still see that actor, but part of me is like, yeah, it makes for the story, it makes a lot of sense that he's dead. Any other thoughts on the Eternal?
Nope. Like I said, I know it's coming out in about a month on Disney Plus. I think it's January
Yes.
12th. So I'm really looking forward to diving into it again for the second time after having about 2 months to really think about it.
Yes, I cannot wait to freeze frame everything. So moving into, we're going along with the theme of the Spider-Man month. We do have some small updates, nothing too crazy. Some things to talk about, I would say. Well, some crazy things, I guess. Amy Pascal has made some comments. First, starting around, the official runtime is been around confirmed about 2 hours and a half. I know whenever I looked at the tickets when I bought them, it was 2 hours and a half. It said in the article 2 hours and 28 minutes, so it's about that 2 hour and 30 mark. So it's about 10 minutes shorter. That was rumored that we had talked about a few weeks back. It's not really much to talk about, Steven, but just any quick thoughts about the length there.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now. I'm curious how long Far From Home and Homecoming were, because I'd be curious to see if it's kind of right around that same time frame. I'm trying to see how long it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because the longest is still Endgame, and then it goes Eternal. So this would have made it the second longest if it stuck to that 2 hour 39 minute time.
Yeah, Far From Home was 129 minutes, so just over 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I feel like we've only seen probably 5.5, 6 minutes total of footage, because the first and second trailer used some of the same shots. I really think that we're going to still have over 2 hours of footage that we haven't seen anything of, and that's what I'm excited about. And I'm really hoping that, we can get through the next 2.5 weeks here without any spoilers. I really, really am just so excited, and I hope, even with all the rumors going around, that 2.5 hours is enough time to tell the story you want to tell without it feeling too cramped. I want them to still have time to breathe, but I feel like if all the rumors are to be believed, we're going to be so busy and kind of bouncing around from story to story. But you know what? It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun. That's what this trilogy has been all about.
Yeah, I want them to be able to tell the story that it needs to be told. If it means that it's a 2 hour and 30 minute movie, perfect. I don't want to take it to a point though where it needed to be like a 2 hour and 45 minute movie or whatever. Like I just hope that whatever it is that they feel confident in, that's what they've decided here. Like we all know, more than likely the two big cameos in this film, but I don't even think that that's the big surprises. Almost everyone in the world, if you have a phone, you know that those two are showing up in this film.
But
So then
also, I'm
there's-
hoping. Sorry, Gigi. I'm hoping that they're more than
Go ahead.
cameos. I am hoping that it's more than
Yeah.
a quick shot. But
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be significant. I think we're looking at 30 to 40 minutes of content with them. But I think that there's more. Like I think there's something about this that just feels special, even more than and I know that that's even in itself that is huge and that is gonna be monumental. That's gonna bridge generations and but there is a lot of things I feel, and a lot of surprises and a lot of twists and a lot of things that are gonna make a lot of people go WTF in that movie theater when they go to
Well,
see this film.
have you seen Into the Spider-Verse?
Yes.
So there's a scene in there that always kind of stood out to me where all these different, Spider-Man variants pop up and they give their quick little story. How cool would it be? Like, we all are expecting to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I mean, if Sony, even though those are the two that everyone suspects, could they really pull it off? And even if they have a short cameo, could we see other characters to set up other Spider-Man that we haven't even considered, other actors, other characters, other variants that could look like, we saw variant Loki as alligator or crocodile Loki. Could we have Spider-Ham show up in live action? How crazy would that be? Miles Morales, but
Nor.
yeah, absolutely. There's so many opportunities, and I don't want it to weaken. If they really want to focus on these three right now and do that later on down the line, go for it, because you got so much potential here.
There is. And so I think it's going to be a really great one. And I think part of it also is just because of also the massive pre-sale success. So if you were like some of us and like most of the internet, you were trying furiously to try to get tickets Sunday night going into Monday. They made the announcement that tickets would be going on sale at midnight 1 Eastern time, and oh my goodness, did this give me flashbacks of every time I had to get a Star Wars movie ticket. Before we get into some of the crazy news about this, Steven, what was it like for you? Like, we were messaging each other at midnight, which is probably the latest we've ever talked.
Yeah, I was tired. That was past my bedtime on a Sunday night. But I did stay up with the idea of, I'll just get, I needed 4 tickets. You needed more than I did. But I went on there, Fandango, and nothing's loading. So of course I messaged you, and you've got 2 monitors up, and you're like, yeah, we got nothing. And so I thought, you know what? I'm not going to a major big city. I'm going to a suburban area. So I thought, no, I should have tickets when I wake up on Monday morning. And I did. I was able to get them at around 8 a.m. What was your ticket buying experience like?
The worst thing ever. This was even worse than Star Wars tickets, because usually like this would happen and like I would get my tickets by like 2 or about like 1 a.m. because like the Star Wars tickets would go on sale about like 9 p.m. and so it would take me about 3 or 4 hours. I stayed up, so they go on 12, and I'm just refreshing everything. I have my phone up, I have both screens, I have Microsoft Edge, I have Firefox, I have Chrome, I'm trying Fandango, I'm trying AMC, I'm trying Atom. I had like created an account for Atom, never even used them before, and nothing was working. I'm getting put into queues, and it's like, you're in there for an hour, and then it would get down to like 2 minutes, and we're bumping back up to over an hour. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So eventually it got to the point, because like Steven had mentioned, I had to get 14 tickets because I'm going with a group. I'm not buying 14 tickets for the heck of it. We're going with a group of 14. And I was like, I got to get these tickets. I can't just disappoint 13 people. Like, no. And so I had to, I at a point, I think it was about 1:30. I was like, okay, this is not going to work. Like, I just have to just keep trying, but I can't just sit here in front of it. So I got to a point where it was about 1:30. I set an alarm for every half hour so that I could wake up every half hour to keep trying to get these tickets. It was so frustrating. Finally, 6 a.m. rolls around. Was able to get in, and I was able to get 14 tickets. It's not at the normal place we go, but it's still close, and it's still perfect seats. It was a miracle, and yeah, it's crazy.
I did not know you did that, and I give you a lot of props for that, because you have more Marvel power than I do, I guess, pushing you through there. But speaking of, when you said you bought 14 tickets for, you and 13 friends, that reminded me how angry it made me to see tickets on eBay for thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Because these scalpers, who again don't even, here's the good news is, you know what? You buy all these tickets, Marvel gets the money no matter what. But let the fans that want to see it go see the movie without having to pay thousands of dollars. Because here's the thing, some people will dish out that money, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but because
it's happening.
It is. And there's so many other better uses of your money. I hate to say it, like, there are so many theaters, there are so many seats available, there are so many show times. Plus, I know you want to see Thursday night, but if you wait until Friday, you can get a $10 ticket. You know what I'm saying? And it's just it's a frustrating that people take advantage of other people this way. Like, part of the reason I think the sites crashed was because people were taking advantage and buying up all these tickets. I don't know. That frustrated me, but I just hope whoever is listening to our show that wants to go on Thursday can get there at a reasonable price. Try to get your tickets now instead of waiting the next 2 weeks, because those showings are going to, and I did see you posted online that they added some more show times at theaters. So always keep checking.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely keep checking your theaters. They're adding it. They know that the demand for, and it's specifically for opening night, maybe also Friday as well. So Thursday, Friday, I would definitely be looking out because theaters are realizing that there is a very, very high demand. Theaters need this boost of sales right now, and so they're going to add it. So just if you think that you missed it, just keep checking, keep looking on there. It will, you'll get to see it. It will happen.
Can I share something else? Because,
Yeah.
it's another frustration. It's not a bad thing, but, as a kid in 2005, I went to my first ever midnight release of Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, thinking that was the last Star
Mhm.
Wars movie. And it was big. Everyone's dressed up, like all these theaters, everyone's having a great time. It's a great communal experience. And that's why I love going to the Thursday night premieres. Typically, if I can, I love to go to IMAX because that's where you get your biggest fans. And, I think you can agree to this. When you go to a Thursday night premiere of any like superhero or Star Wars movie, you're going to get the crowd reactions that you won't get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the further away you go from Thursday
Yeah.
night. Because the people that are the diehard fans are going to be there Thursday night. They don't want to get spoiled. And, maybe it's selfish, maybe it's greedy. I like going to the very first, showing. So over the past couple of years, they've gotten rid of midnights typically, and now they do the Thursday night previews at like 7 or 8 and now 6 o'clock. But what the heck? They now have 3 p.m. and maybe even earlier than
Yeah.
that. And, for people that work, it's a weekday, Thursday, the 16th of December, people I'm sure are going to take off work or take a half day. I'm not, but it's one of those things where I'm waiting with my wife. We're going to go see it with 2 other friends of ours. And I really wanted to see like the earliest show because my biggest fear is I'm walking into the theater. I think I have a 7:15 showing. There's going to be people walking out. If they say anything, it's frustrating because that's why you want to get to the earliest showing to avoid anyone saying anything. So I'm really hoping that nothing leaks online in between 3 p.m. and when we get to see it that evening. But I don't know why they keep moving it up, and I wish they would just kind of stick to a time. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's interesting, especially on Thursday, because the 3:30 and 3 is just weird to me because most people are working. Like it's just very odd. I could see, yeah, no, like it doesn't make sense to me to be honest. And other than just maximizing sales, which it could be a result of COVID and such. I remember all this the sequel trilogy. Because we would go sometimes, like it would be around like that 7, 8. I would still just be so nervous. I would not want to be spoiled and not have it ruined. I would go into the theater and I would go with a group of friends. It was a different group, but it was smaller. And I would go in and I'd say, hey guys, this means so much to me. I don't want to be spoiled. I would literally put on my headphones and I would put it at the loudest volume possible, probably louder than I should, just so that I would not accidentally hear anything. And I feel like that's gonna happen for this film. That I'm gonna have to go in there just because it feels like, if for me this almost feels the closest thing that I felt to a Star Wars film coming out. That there is gonna be so many surprises in here that you don't want to get ruined. Just because when people are walking out, they're gonna be so excited. And I know the respectful thing is to just shut your mouth until you get to your car, get your parking lot. But it's so hard, and I understand because you just saw something epic, and you want to talk about it, and we all don't want to ruin that experience, but that excitement sometimes can just overtake it a little bit. Ah man, it's gonna be crazy. Continuing on with a little bit, talk about those sales. It was insane. So, like we said, sites were crashing, things were going crazy. We did get some numbers. According to Cineplex, which is Canada's largest movie theater chain, it was the biggest pre-sale ticketing launch in their history, which means that it beat everything. It beat Endgame. It beat all of that, which is crazy. I mean, those are pre-COVID movies, so that's insane. And then Eric Davis of Fandango confirmed that Spider-Man No Way Home had the biggest first day of pre-sales at Fandango since Avengers Endgame. It only took 2 hours. 2 hours. And mind you, this is 2 hours with all these servers crashing and going down, and most people not being able to get it. Obviously, some people are, but not everyone. And it took only 2 hours for it to break the 2021 record, previously held by Black Widow. Other films it topped included Avengers Infinity War and both The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Oh my gosh. So I'm assuming it didn't beat The Force Awakens, because I think Force Awakens would be listed there. So like it almost beat these other two big films. What are your thoughts? Like, I think it said like over 3 million tickets were sold. Insane.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the way I'm reading this and the way you just said it. In 2 hours, Spider-Man No Way Home sold more tickets than Black Widow did in the 3 or 4 weeks that was selling pre-sale tickets, correct? Like between the time
It
they started selling, or are you talking in a day?
Yes,
Okay.
the whole pre-sale.
So the whole pre-sale that probably lasted 2, 3, 4 weeks, I don't remember how long it
Yeah.
was. This sold more in 2 hours than that did in weeks.
Yep.
So think about that, and it's still probably selling rapid speed right now. The amount of people, and Black Widow did very well back in May.
Mhm.
It was one of the first major films, during the pandemic, during 2021. So that's awesome. I just hearing that, like, it's hard to even fathom 2 hours versus 2 to 3 weeks. That's hard to imagine.
It's such an incredible thing because I think I even saw the number, like the pre-sales for them were like they sold like 150,000 tickets. This in that day did 3 million. 3 million. Like obviously, unfortunately with all the circumstances, like this is not gonna like top 2 billion, 3 billion. Like I think pre-COVID it would have gotten, I think it got really dangerously close to 3 billion, which would be insane. This film is on its way to break $1 billion. And in this COVID era, this is a blockbuster. This is insane numbers. Like number one right now, because I just pulled up on Box Office Mojo. Number one right now is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and it has grossed 224.5 million. Like that's where the number one is, and then right behind it is Venom: Let There Be Carnage at 209. And then Black Widow's behind that. So the top three are Marvel. I mean, not surprised. Eternals is at number 7. So this is promising.
Yeah, and I just pulled up too. Where is it at? The highest opening weekends of all time: Avengers Endgame 357 million, Infinity War 257, Star Wars 247. So the Star Wars and Infinity War were almost on par with how much Shang-Chi's made since September. And, I don't think with the pandemic, we're not going to see those types of numbers, but with the way it's being described of how many tickets it's selling already, it has a potential to be in the top 5. I mean, it could be massive, and it could even shock us and it could get up there to Force Awakens and Infinity War numbers. It's hard to say during a pandemic, but it wouldn't surprise me with how well it's sold. My other question for you, and I know I ask this almost every week, but now seeing these numbers, if you put Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in the trailer, in the poster, which we still have not gotten a good poster and it still frustrates me, do you make more money, or do you make more by word of mouth and surprising the audience, and then more people go out for the next weekend or 2 weekends? What do you do if you're marketing at Sony?
It's so hard because now as this goes on, it's like I feel like if you have, like I said, if you have a cell phone or a computer and you have even the slightest interest in watching this movie, I feel like they're in it. And so it makes me feel that they should not reveal it. Like maybe they should tease it. I think they should definitely confirm a tease, put in some musical cues, put in some shadows, or just something, just the slightest tease, just to give that one final, yes, they're in it. Like y'all know it, but they're in it. Because I think that is what Sony is doing here. Is they don't want to show them. They want us, for the first time they want us to see these two in this film is to be in that movie theater seat on that Thursday night with a bunch of other people, and we are all screaming and losing our minds and just going crazy. Like they don't want us to react to it in a trailer. Like, I mean, yeah, it might sell a couple more tickets, but most of everybody knows that they're in this film. Like, it's the worst kept Hollywood secret ever.
Yeah, Sony did a nice job earlier this year, I guess last month, with their Ghostbusters, because you never see the original Ghostbusters in the trailer. You hear a voice in the first trailer of Dan Aykroyd, and then in the second trailer, I think they show, maybe their belts, maybe they're from like just like a waist shot. You don't see the faces yet, and so they did a nice job. So the first time you actually see the original Ghostbusters, who everyone knew was going to be back, isn't actually in the movie theater, and it was really great on that. I went on the Friday night premiere for that one, but yeah. So I mean, who's to say? But I really can. Now I'm starting to get nervous if they don't show up in it, the backlash that the movie's going to get. But who knows? They are going to show up. They have to.
They have to. Like, there's no way. Can you imagine I don't even know. I can't even fathom a universe, a multiverse where this doesn't happen. Like, we've led up now to a year of all these rumors, these speculations, these photos, these videos. Some are fake, some are real, some are like, they have to be. They have to be.
If they're not, I almost feel like we need to take a week off of this podcast because that's all we've talked about for now, especially this month, that I think we're just going to be so fried that we'll still like the movie, but man, after all this hype up that we're doing for ourselves, we're going to need a break if they don't show up.
It's just, oh, did you see, so this is off the script, but I think it's quite appropriate with this. Did you see there was this very short tease, like a TV spot, and it's like Tom Holland is like standing in front and he's like, hey, like we got to talk about a big announcement or whatever. And it was like, he was just going to be talking about like ticket is now on sale. And he's like, I have 2 friends with me. We have to talk about this big announcement. And it's just MJ and Ned. And we're like, y'all are freaking, they just dangling the little carrot in front of us. They know we know, and they are going to play with that in every way possible.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but that sounds right on par with how they've been marketing. And I hope that, you're right. At this point, I don't want to see anything else. I just wanted to go into that theater with hopefully over 2 hours of footage we have not seen. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I know when we did the discussion on the trailer, we kind of broke it down and kind of gave our predictions about the order of things. And I hope they, surprise us. I hope it's not the order we expect. I hope there's a lot of twists and turns in there and a lot of cameos that maybe we didn't consider.
Well, I do think there is going to be one more trailer, though. I think next week we're getting one final fight because we haven't gotten that. Because when they do the trailers, when there's that last trailer, they say final trailer. The second trailer was just number 2. I think we're getting a final trailer. I think it's going to be about a minute and a half. It's going to be a lot of the same footage, but I think that's when we're going to get our first tease of Tobey and Andrew.
That would be not the worst thing, as long as I want them to tease it like you said. But we right now, as we're recording this, we only have 15 days, and that's so close, but yet so far away.
2 weeks?
2 weeks from tomorrow.
That hit me today. I looked at the calendar and I was like, I'm seeing this movie in 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So speaking of the future a little bit, or the future question mark, Amy Pascal had made some comments about the ending of this trilogy and the future. This is, she said in an interview with Fandango, this is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. It's not the last Spider-Man movie. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies. And then Hollywood Reporter kind of follows along saying that from their inside sources from inside Sony, there's nothing official in place. There is not a trilogy on the docket at this moment. There might be some talks about the future, but there is nothing official, like ink signed yet. As far as we know right now, Tom Holland's deal after this film, has just 1 MCU film. So, Steven, we were both talking a lot about this, lots of excitement, lots of hype, but then also like confusion. Amy Pascal has also in the past has made some comments, literally sitting next to Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige gives her the, what are you talking about? Look, what are your thoughts about this? Like, I think it's a no-brainer we're getting more, but
yeah, I don't think she has a filter. And, when you're a movie, executive, and I was actually doing some research on her. I was reading up on her. She's not really attached to Sony right now, but she's attached to Spider-Man. So she does have a little bit more, I hate to say, freedom to kind of say what she wants without like any type of punishment, because she's kind of her own independent producer at this point, which good for her. But I think she's doing, some manifesting where she's trying to say what she's hoping for, because now that everyone shared it, like you and I did on social media, now it's almost like Sony and Marvel have to find a way to make this work, even if they were still thinking, oh, potentially we could. And my first thought was, when I heard this, I'm like, I love Tom Holland Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man in general. How great would it be to do a trilogy in high school, a trilogy in college, and I'm thinking long-term, a trilogy as an adult, and then really just give him this arc. But hearing Tom Holland's recent comments, and now he's such a big Hollywood star at this point. He's going to be in Uncharted next year. Tom Holland has so many other projects I'm sure that he would like to work on. And he's mentioned he doesn't want to, he said the other day that if he's 30 and still playing Spider-Man, he's done something wrong, which I don't agree with, because as you and I get closer to 30, I wish I was playing Spider-Man. Right. But it's one of those things where I could definitely see maybe this next trilogy, if he agrees to come back for a little bit longer, you know, maybe is the time where he becomes the mentor. Maybe this is the time where they focus on Miles. Maybe this is the time where he can still pop up, you know, as your friendly neighborhood college adult Spider-Man later on down the line, but he doesn't have to headline the movie because I'm sure that's a lot of work, physical work that goes into it. I mean, there are so many possibilities that we don't even know about yet with what's going to happen at the end of No Way Home. I want to see him pop up in Venom 3. I want to see him in a Kraven the Hunter film. I mean, I would love for him, even if he's not leading these movies, to still be around because he does such a good job as performing Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You hear these comments from Amy Pascal, and we got to take it with a grain of salt still because we have not had that official announcement yet, and I don't think we will for a while. How do you feel about it?
It's one of those things that it just seems like a no-brainer to me because I feel like it's a character that Tom really loves to play and that Tom has the heart for, and it's also something that sells for these studios. So it's more of a matter of when, not really of a if for me. I definitely think Amy Pascal is definitely willing it into the universe. I think there's definitely been, you know, they talked about this. They've had to have talked about this, but there's nothing on paper yet, nothing signed into ink yet. I do think. I think it's interesting because there is just a lot of possibilities. There was something that I read somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, but Tom and Peter Parker specifically is really starting to become the heart of the MCU that Tony was. And I think that is like even just in the sense of just looking at, you know, he was like almost like a mentee of Tony, and so that's how he's like picking up the mantle in more ways than maybe we expected. To seeing Tom continue in that story, and even the possibility if he is to get like this confirmed trilogy, say that was to be announced at some point, he'd be the only one to have 6 solo films, you know, unless Thor keeps getting more. But at that point, he would be the only one. So that is impressive. Any other thoughts on the Spider-Man love?
No, I'm hoping, you know, maybe by the end of the year, maybe I'm just being optimistic. If Spider-Man No Way Home comes out on the 17th, maybe early January, once people have a chance to see it, maybe Sony and Marvel will put out some type of announcement of when we're going to see him again or where we're going to see him, whether it's in a Sony film or a Marvel film. I just want to know, like, I'm kind of getting nervous it's going to end on a cliffhanger. I'm kind of nervous it's going to be like our Empire Strikes Back, and I hope it's not. I mean, this could. Did they compare this more to Infinity War or Endgame? Because that's a big difference.
Endgame.
Okay, that's better. Because if it would have been an Infinity War ending, I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have some type of heartbreak in our future. But hopefully, it does wrap it up nicely in case we have to wait a couple of years to see him again. But we've seen him almost every year, right? Since he was introduced in Civil War. So I can't imagine going more than a year or two without a Spider-Man appearance. And I mean, I know we're getting his prequel animated TV show that'll introduce his origin story. So Spider-Man's not going anywhere, but it might be maybe another year or two till we see Tom Holland again, which as long as he can come back, I just love his character and I can't wait to see him again. So yeah, I'm excited.
It's going to be super exciting to see because next year, so we already have next year's Sony's lineup pretty much in on paper. We have Morbius in January, and then we have Into the Spider-Verse sequel on October, and then Kraven's in 2023. So it might take a little bit of time. We might start to get some announcements maybe in January, but definitely it might be a little bit of time.
When else do you think could we see a Comic-Con? I mean, Disney will have D23 next year,
D23.
Right?
Yeah.
So they'll probably announce what's next for their Disney Plus shows and movies for Marvel, or at least maybe a update.
Yeah. It would be at D23 if they're going to announce it, I think.
What about for Sony though? Would they be at Comic-Con in July maybe?
Unless they have a deal and they're like, "Hey, you can do this."
That would be nice because aren't these Sony Spider-Man movies, their catalog coming to Disney Plus at some point soon?
They're supposed to.
The sooner the better, because that makes it really look good if we can get all. I mean, then we're just missing Incredible Hulk, and that's gonna bug me. But at some point, maybe they'll all be together on Disney Plus that you can stream them. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. The future of Spider-Man is very bright. I think we're gonna go through an emotional roller coaster in 2 weeks, but the future for this character and our enjoyment is it's gonna be awesome, and I cannot wait for that. So that does wrap up our news for the week. It was a crazy week, lots of good stuff. But we are going to hop in and talk about Hawkeye. We did take a little bit of a break there for Thanksgiving to enjoy the time with our families. So we are going to be talking about the first 3 episodes of Hawkeye. Episode 1 and 2 premiered last Wednesday, and episode 3 premiered this Wednesday, which is crazy because that means we're halfway through. Steven, we only have 3 more weeks of the show. So let's talk about it. What are your initial thoughts on Hawkeye so far?
Yeah, that dawned on me today too, that we're halfway through, and I couldn't believe it because, What If went on for 8 weeks, 9 weeks, right? And
Yeah.
9 weeks. And, most of the shows went on for multiple weeks, but because you put episodes 1 and 2 together, because of Book of Boba Fett coming out at the end of the month, it does feel very condensed. And I mean, I really am enjoying it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite yet, but I like the fact that, every single MCU Disney Plus show has a very different tone, a very different style, a very different feel. This reminds me a lot of the Netflix grounded street level New York shows that they had with the Defenders, with Daredevil, with Jessica Jones. And I like those. So it's kind of been nice to see something similar. I am appreciating Clint Barton, I think, more because I think we've probably seen him more in these 3 episodes than we have in all of his appearances in the films. But I'm also glad it is his show, but again, he's the mentor. We are really focusing on Kate Bishop. She's the one that opens up the show. She's the one that's probably getting more screen time. She's the one that she's leading Hawkeye in the future. I don't think Jeremy Renner's going to die. I don't think Clint Barton's going to die. He could, but this is really to set up, again, another young Avenger. And I'm really liking her character. It's making me want to go and read I think it's Matt Fraction, I think is the name of the comic book writer, his run of Hawkeye with Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, because I hear it's really great story. And I want to get to know more about Kate Bishop. I want to get to know more about these characters because I'm having fun. I love the Christmas theme to it. Like anytime Christmas music plays, like especially in episode 3, we'll talk about, it's just, I really think this is going to be something I'm going to go back to each year around Christmas time. What about you?
That's exactly what I thought, because Kevin Feige literally said he wants this to be the tradition, the annual, where every time it comes around to Christmas, you watch these 6 episodes. And by probably the end of the first episode, I was like, yeah, I can see myself watching this every year, these 6 episodes. And just every time it comes up, it's either, there's just the scenery, there's the events that are happening, and then there's the music. I think the music really just sells it, and it's just it's such a fun show. It really is, and it has some really deep emotional moments, but it also just it has a lot of fun, and it knows when to be really serious, yet at the same time be very heavy on the comedy. Like, I think almost this is probably more comedy than any of the other series that we've seen so far, in my opinion. And just seeing Kate Bishop, I am just like falling in love, and what I love so much about the idea of these young Avengers is that they're young. We're gonna see their journey probably for years to come, multiple years into phases, and that, depending on whatever the storyline they want to do with them, like, we could see these characters grow up and become the adult versions, and that is just, it's so exciting that we're starting at a really exciting point here with Phase 4, and we're really setting up some really great future characters that we're only just starting to get to meet.
Yeah, I like the way you said that because did she tell Clint in episode 1 or 2, and I think episode 2, is she 21 or 22? She's young.
She can. It was a scene about drinking, and she said she could drink. So yeah, she's like 21 or 22.
She's 21 or 22. So again, like you said,
it's at the restaurant. It's at the balls or whatever that evening thing with her mom, and she goes, and I think one of the waitresses says something.
But so phase 1, 2, and 3, the Infinity Saga, took place over just over 10 years, 11 years. So yeah, if we're following her story from a 20-year-old to a 30-year-old, again, imagine the amount of character development and growth she'll have. And again, let's just start at the beginning real quick, because that opening scene in 2012, and as soon as you see that year, you immediately go to the Avengers. And the fact that they were able to tie it in and show scenes from her vantage point, incredible. To see, this is where she was inspired by Hawkeye to go into this life of to train her whole life. Like, I loved how it ended right before the really awesome opening credits that we only got in that first episode to make it feel more like a movie, where she says she wants a bow and arrow at her dad's funeral. And that was her whole motivation and how she's been training since for over 10 years now, because this is 2025.
24.
24. Okay. So she's
Yeah.
been training for 12 years. And that's again, I love the origin stories we're getting with her. I love the origin story we got today with Echo. Like, they are setting up these characters so well. And I cannot wait to see, like you said, them grow up. The thing I'm most excited about, and I'm so glad that you've been watching Daredevil, did we get our first appearance of Fisk today? I just need to talk about that. When they keep referring to Uncle, Echo's uncle, in the comics, Kingpin does raise Echo. We saw, we heard a laugh, we saw a hand. They're setting it up, and they also keep referring to, Avengers Tower, and we know it was sold back in Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's got to be Fisk Tower. It has to be at this point, because I was telling JG off air, if you've watched the Defenders shows on Netflix, Kingpin Wilson Fisk rises to power in the criminal underworld of New York because of the fact of the blip, or no, excuse me, of the Avengers attack, the Chitauri attack on New York, and the destruction it caused. And it almost feels like, to me, they're using like the blip as those 5 years where Ronan took out the criminal underworld for Kingpin to then be able to rise up. And I think he is such an awesome villain, and I loved his performance and character development in the Defenders shows. If he's coming in the next week or two, as it's been heavily hinted at, I'm just so excited that it makes me want next Wednesday so bad. I mean, do you think we got our first MCU appearance of Fisk? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, yes, and it makes me so excited because I did start the Defenders, the shows, knowing that Kingpin was being hinted at, and knowing that there's been lots of hints about Daredevil and all of them, like all these, like most of the Defenders, the ones that were really well received are going to be possibly more than likely coming into the MCU proper, and haven't finished Daredevil season 1. I binged that in 2 days. That is probably one of the best seasons of television I have ever watched. That one of the best stories of Marvel I have ever watched. That has one of the best heroes, one of the best villains, one of the best like fiance to a villain. Like I literally wanted to find anyone and everyone to talk about that show. I'm like literally making my friend group watch it who have never seen it. I'm like, you guys have to watch this. And the fact that we're getting Wilson Fisk and the same Wilson Fisk actor and everything. Oh my gosh. And like you can just tell, like it's there. Like it's his hand. If not, it's freaking Mephisto again. Like it's we all thought it was Mephisto. It's not Mephisto. They cannot pull the rug from us again. I cannot take heartbreak again. Like it's gotta be Kingpin.
Yeah, it has to be. And I mean, why do we only have 3 episodes left? Because I want to see a lot of Kingpin. And I feel like they're just going to introduce him and set him up for something else, because we still have to have Yelena pop up, because we know they set that up in Black Widow.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah. With only 3 episodes left, she's either going to have a small role in the finale or she's going to be a side character, but there's not enough time. And I don't want to take away time from Echo, because man, this episode 3 was her episode at the beginning, and I fell in love with her. And the fact that, they've done such a nice job. Like we keep talking on here, we're big for representation. And, we saw Makari, that was a deaf character in Eternals, and Echo now being deaf, and also Clint Barton being deaf due to all the different, trauma he's dealt with since the beginning of, the MCU. It's great to see Hawkeye and Echo and how they both have this disability, but how they've handled it. Like, she's very much like, you don't need a hearing aid. She's, pardon my friend, she's badass. And just seeing what she went through was incredible, and her journey, and how, again, in 5-6 minutes, we got her whole backstory. So that way, as we see her in this show, and we know she's supposed to get her own show, I think maybe next year or 2023, at some point, we're getting an Echo show.
Yeah.
Now, do you think they find a way to turn Echo into more of a likable hero, or is she going to be that rogue, like, again, maybe like leading an underworld in New York? Where do you see her character going? Because I do think she becomes an Avenger at some point in the comics.
Yeah, she does go good. It's interesting. I think it's going to really depend on when she finds out, because that's going to happen. She's going to find out who the identity of Ronan is. We're building to that climax. There's no way that resolves without her finding out that Clint was Ronin. Like, there's just, you can't go anywhere besides that she has to find out. I think it could go either way. And circling back to Yelena, now that I'm really thinking about it, going into this, not knowing really what we were going to be getting, I was all about, oh yeah, Yelena's going to like take up a good majority of like the second half of the show. I don't think so anymore. I think if anything, when we see Yelena, because I think she does have to show up, I think it could be the post-credit scene at the very end, like after episode 6, setting up where they do meet or whatever. And it's going to set up whatever that next story is that we don't know, but it's a new show or a new movie or whatever. I don't think it works. If you're putting in this whole resolution, because I think next week is going to be really a lot about, next week's probably going to be a lot about, what's that one character, Marksman, whatever his name is, the uncle, no, not uncle, whatever the relative to Kate is, because it ends with him holding the sword up.
Oh yeah,
to his neck.
Her
Yes.
future, her mom's boyfriend.
Yes, him. Family is a mess, but yes, him. I think that's going to focus on their relationship a lot. It's supposed to be a shorter episode. I think we'll get that final tease that actually reveals Kingpin, but at least 2 episodes. That's not enough to then also introduce Yelena. That's too messy. It's gonna be about Echo and Kingpin.
I like your idea of a Yelena post credit, and then they could easily do what Loki did and say Hawkeye season 2, and then maybe even say Christmas 2022, because that's what Mandalorian did last Christmas and said Book of Boba Fett Christmas 2022. So that gives you a year. And I hate to say it, we just got Yelena a few months ago. It might be too soon. I think like if you let it breathe for a little bit and like you tease that she's after him, and then now we have another year to worry about what's going to happen when they do meet up and she's the big character for season 2, I'd be fine with that. I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, if we had a 10 episode order, we could do 5 episodes and 5 episodes, but we don't. We have 3 episodes left.
It would feel rushed. It would feel very forced.
Do you think there's any foul play going on between the mom and the dad? Because when Kate was scared in her room from the Chitauri invasion, she's calling for help. We know mom and dad were fighting. We know mom and dad are nowhere to be found. They're down in the basement. What's happening? Wouldn't that be a convenient time to kill someone and then get away with it? Is mom behind dad's death? Is there more to that story? Is dad still alive somewhere? What's happening?
Yeah, there's so many possibilities, especially like if you know the comics and such. And again, I follow Cosmic Wonder, which is such an incredible channel. Warren does a great job breaking down and have all the Easter eggs. It's how I get my insight in the comics without having to read them, since I haven't. There's a lot of interesting possibilities they could go here with that. Without even knowing it, because obviously I watched the episodes before and then I find out all the Easter eggs after. Without knowing, I knew that mom is sus. Like, that mom is sus. Whenever they're in the gala, whatever that event is, whenever the attacks, they come in, the Tracksuit Mafia, they come in, she doesn't react. She's just like, oh, I'm just gonna drink my wine, I'm just gonna chill, like nothing's happening. Wow, there's chaos all around her. Girl, you gotta act scared. Like, come on. Like, it was like a big getaway. And we obviously know, I think she's up to no good, and I don't trust her. I don't know, like maybe she's evil to the core. I think she just might be kind of more like what's his name, the director in WandaVision, just a bad guy. I think she's a bad girl. Yeah,
and I know you and I had mentioned, I hate to kind of keep going off track, but she reminded me a lot of Vanessa from Daredevil, and she was such a great character there. And I don't think it's going to tie in with the same way, but she reminds me of that character where she's pulling the strings, I think, more than we give her credit for. What about that car chase in episode 3? And I know it was teased during Disney Plus Day, but we got an extended version of it. We had the music playing, all the trick arrows, including one by Mr. Hank Pym. Oh, that was so much fun. Like, was that your favorite scene, I think, recently? What do you think?
It's probably one of my favorite scenes of the year. Like I just the whole time, and I did a reaction that will be edited soon, but the whole time I'm just like the cinematography, the way they shot it, where they're in the back of the seat, and it's as the car is moving, the camera is moving, and just the whole thing, the whole action, the comedy, everything. It was. I think it's one of the best overall scenes in Marvel and like action scenes. Like it was done so freaking well. I want to watch it over and over again.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is why I think this show, even though I did read, not as many people are checking it out as they did for WandaVision because that was the first show.
Yeah.
And I think people need to give this a chance. And hopefully over Christmas break, more people will just binge it because it's worth a binge. I think that'll work well with. I think you have the perfect mixture of comedy and action and heart. Like, I'm not gonna lie, even on today's episode, the third episode, where he's on the phone with his son and he can't hear him, and Haley Steinfeld, Kate Bishop's writing down the messages, and he can't even hear his son tell him he loves him. Like, I was getting emotional. And that's at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So I'm like, oh, the fact that you're able to hit my emotional heartstrings, still make me laugh, and then make me like on the edge of my seat with some of the best action compared to any Marvel film. This show deserves to be watched, and I think it could, if it sticks the landing, I think it has the potential to really go down in history for sure.
It really does. I think I will say the encouraging thing, even though it is not being watched as much as some of the other ones, you also have to realize that Hawkeye is like not a super popular hero. Like we love Hawkeye, we're all about it, but it's Hawkeye also. But I will say I bring it up because the encouraging thing though is that it made it to be like the number one show like streaming in the world, but it did it quicker than the other ones. And so even though it's maybe not getting as many viewers, each Marvel show that comes on, it gets quicker, gets up the charts quicker. So it does mean that the Marvel fans that are like all of us that are listening to the podcast and all of us who are crazy, like we are, more and more people are now watching this quicker. And I think that is a promising sign for Marvel and Disney, that, the more and more people are watching these quicker. And maybe it's not as many as I think certain shows are going to have spikes and such because it just depends on the character's popularity. Loki's the most popular one. Loki's probably one of the most popular villains, heroes in Marvel, so it makes sense. Like you're gonna have these up and down spikes, but if your show is still, even if it's quote unquote the lowest numbers, the worst, you're still hitting that number one spot. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think we'll have even more to talk about as we go each week. I just love the fact that we're getting so much content almost weekly, this year, and then going into next year, we're going to have almost weekly content of Marvel to discuss, whether it be films or television. And it's just so exciting to have, a weekly, it's almost like, it is a comic book, really. You pick up different comic books every Wednesday. Well, guess what? Every Wednesday or Friday, we're getting new material. And, 1 week you get a Hawkeye. Next week you get a Miss Marvel. Next week you get Wakanda Forever. You get a variety here. Yeah. And that's why Marvel's so successful. Plus, you bring in all these cameos and characters like we talked about earlier with Maria Hill. You now have so many characters that you can then, mix them up together. That's what fans want to see. They want to see these characters mixed up. And by introducing this new Hawkeye, like you said, we've got the next 10 plus years of a Hawkeye. Whether we have Clint Barton in the sidelines, whether something happens to him and his family, they retire, we've got a new Hawkeye that we can get behind already.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very exciting. We'll have a lot more to talk about. There's going to be, I do think that these final 3 episodes have the potential to make this the best of the shows just because of what it sets up. And I know that says a lot because Loki like literally fractured the multiverse. WandaVision ended with her becoming the Scarlet Witch. But there is a lot of love that are attached with these characters that are being teased. It's also teasing more multiverse stuff. There's a lot of potential here. And so it's a lot to look forward to. I am so excited to see where this takes us. And it's gonna cross paths with Spider-Man. There's gonna be that week where we're watching that new movie and also watching a new episode of Hawkeye. And that has some very interesting potential there.
I'm not expecting a crossover or connection. Are you? Or they're both, or could they be at Christmas time? I don't know if Spider-Man.
I don't think so, just because of timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, unless they have, it would have to be a character that shows up, just minor.
Fisk. Could Fisk be a post-credit scene because he's a Spider-Man villain? That would be interesting. Bring it on. Make it
Oh,
happen.
that's a
Tony,
lot.
Marvel.
Especially because of the other person that's I don't want to ruin in case somehow you don't know, but in case the other person that's rumored as well that's in Spider-Man.
Wouldn't that be something to do a post-credit scene that doesn't even have Spider-Man? But
yeah,
Eternals had Black Knight, spoiler. But anyhow, they definitely could set up a different property, whether that's going to be a Disney Plus show or a movie. But I like that idea.
So every time we keep talking about the post credits, it just keeps getting more and more. How about instead of the credits, like we'll do the credits like as a bonus episode, like have it somewhere. Just do the whole credits as post credit scenes. Like do another like 10 minutes of post credits. Like I just feel like the Spider-Man No Way Home has this potential to set up a million different stories. Like it's insane. It's insane. It really is, and I'm so excited. 2 weeks. Well. Speaking of the Spider-Man and Spider-Man love, we are going to be heading into our main topic. We're going to be doing a brief discussion. We had talked about that for this first week, we're going to be talking about the Tobey Maguire trilogy. Next week, we'll be talking about Andrew Garfield. So if you haven't watched it in a while, we recommend you check it out. And also just send us some emails about your thoughts about Andrew Garfield or any of the Spider-Man movies. We really want to hear it from you guys. But this week is all about Tobey Maguire. Steven, I had watched it, the trilogy. I actually binged the trilogy about 2 weeks ago. One movie each night. I was not feeling good from the third vaccine, and man, that was quite an emotional roller coaster to do so quickly. Let's talk about it. What are just general thoughts about this trilogy as a whole, and Tobey Maguire as Peter?
Yeah, it's so nostalgic because growing up, I was big into Star Wars like you were. And so, as this was 2002 for the first one, so I would have been 10 years old. And I remember going with my parents and my brother. And, this was just a movie everyone went and saw. I think it was around 4th of July weekend or Memorial Day weekend, something like that. And so everyone was going to see this movie. It was huge when it came out. And, this was a time when X-Men was out. There were some other properties that were coming out around the early 2000s, but they were not connected at all. And, I was too young to even, I think, realize about a connected universe. So that wasn't a big deal. But it was so much fun to kind of go back and rewatch these. And I haven't seen them in so long. And it is a fun trilogy. The fact that they had Sam Raimi direct all three of them, which again, shout out, we're going to see his directorial MCU debut next year with Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Having Sam Raimi have the kind of singular vision and seeing the character arcs that occurred, especially between our three, I hate to say main characters, but between Peter Parker, MJ, and Harry Osborn, and how they developed over the course of 3 films where they really got to expand their storylines was really great. I just think like it's a lot of fun. There is some humor in it. There's a lot of cheese. It's very campy compared to, I think, more of the realistic. I don't want to say realistic because MCU is not always realistic, but it's more relatable maybe. And whereas this is, again, it feels more like a comic booky movie a little bit. I liked the villains. And I'm really glad to see them coming back, in a couple of weeks here, one from each movie at least. What were your initial takeaways? And was this your first time seeing Spider-Man 3 or had you seen that one before?
Yeah, so I've seen the first Spider-Man numerous times, and I think I saw them, about middle schoolish. And I'd seen Spider-Man 2 once, I just had no memory of it, and I'd seen Spider-Man 3 once, I had no memory of it. So it's kind of felt like watching it for the first time, essentially. This trilogy, I think it works so together as a whole. I think when you look at some of them as an individual, it's not so good, but I think the second just is one of the best comic book films of all time, I think. I think that's a very popular opinion. But in defense for the third and the first one, I think when you put them all three together is one heck of a story. And I just really like the portrayal of the characters and such. And like, I really have unintentionally surrounded myself with Spider-Man because I had recently, a couple months back, played the Spider-Man on PlayStation, and I also had played it on the Miles Morales. And so just seeing this version of the story was really refreshing, and it did just take me back to being a kid again. It gave me that young, like that very 2000 films have that vibe that if you were growing up in the 2000s like Steven and I, like, it. And it's this film, personally for me, the one thing that stood out the most is actually not even Spider-Man, but it's actually Harry. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking Henry for a hot second, but Harry's story. I think Harry's story is the standout in this trilogy. and it might be a hot take. It might not be. I'm not really sure. But for me, just seeing that whole story from the beginning through the second, and then where it ends up, I I felt a lot of emotions. There was tears. I don't remember. I was really sick, but Harry's story, it really, I don't know, that left like more of an impact than I expected it to.
Yeah, it did because, and I agree with you. The second one, real quick, is one of my favorite any type of movies. Like, and it's not a perfect movie. It's not, but it's a really good and exciting movie. Like
It's
Doc Ock is such a great villain.
It really is such a great villain, and I think what really does such a great job is that it has a great it's a good story. It has a good start, a finish, and an end, and it really does it stands on its own, but it is a middle piece of this chapter.
And yeah, Doc Ock just really stands out to me. And like the third one, we laughed at, my wife and I. It was very cheesy, Peter Parker dancing through the streets, the jazz music playing, the dance off, and it's just like it was a little cringy to watch. But and like when Harry, what's his name, James Franco, is playing of course you got the amnesia plot in there at the beginning, and that was a little bit weird for me. But what did I want to say? It was just like, it was still a good movie, and it had that beautiful ending, of they reconciled, MJ and Peter, who were like the love story of this franchise. And when Peter went dark during the third one, and like when he hit her, I really struggled with that. Even still, I'm such against any type of that. And so it was hard for me to even see that, because that was not who he should have been. He should have been more supportive for her throughout the whole movie. And he was so focused on Spider-Man himself. And even when he kisses Gwen at that celebration, that really bothered me too, because again, that's not who I want Peter Parker to be. And I'm glad that hopefully he's going to, change and get better as he goes. What about, what else was kind of surprising, just from you and I are from Pittsburgh. Did you know that Flash in the first one was Joe Manganiello from Pittsburgh?
I didn't realize that. No.
And what's surprising is, again, they did a premiere for Spider-Man in Pittsburgh, I think at the waterfront. And my wife actually went in 2002. And it was not the whole cast, but it was like basically like a party for Joe Manganiello as Flash Thompson. Huh. And because she, long story, distant connection with his family. But anyhow, whenever we were watching the third movie at Harry's funeral, and Joe Manganiello is actually in there as Flash Thompson at the funeral. And I never noticed that before. And just kind of a small connection there.
I didn't either.
Did you how would you rank the villains in this trilogy?
Like individually, like all, like, so like, are you talking about like,
we've got Green Goblin in the first one, Doc Ock. Then we have Sandman, we have Hobgoblin, and we have Venom. And again, after watching, even though the Venom Tom Hardy movies have their own issues, but they're still pretty good films, I appreciate them so much more after seeing this Venom. Were you the same way?
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. Like, this is like, after watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, Tom Hardy, like, you're the man.
Like, the Venom movies have a more realistic looking Venom, a comic book accurate Venom. This looks like Spider-Man, like small, scrawny Spider-Man, no tongue, nothing. It's just like, what is this?
It felt like I was watching a video game character. Like, I will not lie. That's what it felt like.
Well, and if I have to make one criticism, and I still want to enjoy the plot without worrying about it, I felt like the graphics in Spider-Man 1 and 2 held up better. Spider-Man 3 graphics did feel like a PlayStation 2 video game. The scenes where Spider-Man was flying or, swinging around against Hobgoblin and towards the first act, it just felt so CGI, and it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. And that shouldn't go against the plot, but did you notice that? Did it feel like Spider-Man 3 had a little bit less refined graphics, even though it came out later?
Yeah, it seemed rushed. It seemed like the script was rushed. It seemed like the graphics was rushed. And obviously, I don't have the whole ins and out. It'd be great if there was a book for that, kind of like the Marvel Studios. But yeah, it didn't feel polished at all.
No, it did not. It felt like, it was rushed. I did like how it connected back, the whole Ben Parker and Sandman storyline. I did like that. I was just actually looking up. There was a plan. They were planning to do a Spider-Man 4, and then they changed course and did Amazing Spider-Man. Do you know which villains were being considered for Spider-Man 4, or do you want me to share with you?
So I'm actually looking at Wikipedia right now,
Yeah.
actually. So I have heard, I found out now. Yeah.
So we had Vulture, which was being
Hmm.
rumored to be John Malkovich, Black
Hmm.
Cat, which would have been Anne Hathaway, which would have
Anne
been
Hathaway.
similar to her Catwoman, and then Mysterio would have been supposedly Bruce Campbell, who kind of comes to mind from Ash from Evil Dead, and that's from Sam Raimi as well. And actually, Bruce Campbell popped up in all three movies as different characters. I don't know if you recognized him. He
Mm-mm.
was the guy that gave Spider-Man his name at the wrestling match. He
Mm.
was in number 2 the guy that wouldn't let Peter into the show after it started. And then in the third one, he was the waiter that I got a laugh out of, who kept bringing over the ring.
Yes. That's
So I like
great.
Bruce Campbell. So I mean, it's kind of interesting that they had it kind of planned out and mapped out that 3 was not supposed to be the end. And it works as a pretty good trilogy. I would have been curious to see where they would have gone with it. And it does
Yeah.
I do have some hope that we could potentially see a Spider-Man 4, even if it jumps ahead 15, 16 years later, if we see Tobey Maguire pop back up again. Do you think, would Sony ever consider doing sequels to these older films? Like it would almost like a Logan style, like a little bit darker, a little bit grittier.
Yeah. I think I think with the success that this film is going to bring, No Way Home, I think that there is a lot of potential there. I think if anything that we have learned, even if Andrew Garfield's films were not financially successful, I don't think they were. I could be wrong. At least I know for at least they weren't critically received well. Let me put it that way. Um, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of hunger. There's a lot of desire of the fans, and just I think I had teased and I had joked about at months ago about how the movie will end and it'll say Tobey Maguire will return as Spider-Man in Spider-Man 4 and Andrew Garfield will return as Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man 3. And I think there could be potential there. We are opening the multiverse and we are having this. And I think if the fans in this movie just blows it out of the water, like more than likely it's going to, I think anything is possible. And if the actors want to do it, I don't see a reason, because that's just free money. I think there'd be more of a concern, I will say, for the Andrew Garfield side of things. I think we're more likely to see a Spider-Man 4 than Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, but maybe we'll see the fans kind of reopen themselves back up to Andrew Garfield after seeing him return, if he does. And it might kind of get people more excited about seeing all 3 of these, whether they do more live action Spider-Verse films or give them a chance to cross over into other properties like a Venom or a Morbius. Like, I think Andrew Garfield would kind of work on that darker edge a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think they better lock him in because he had recently been in a movie, Tick Tick Boom, which is on Netflix, and that man is going to be going to get an Oscar nomination and could potentially win. And so if they want to do this or potentially do it, they better get it in, because if not, Andrew Garfield is going to be in a lot of stuff moving after this. I think that film really is going to really put him back on people's radars. I think maybe something like The Amazing Spider-Man. Again, I don't know the whole narrative, but I feel like maybe he kind of dropped off because I honestly haven't really heard much about him besides that. I know those movies that come out, I really wasn't into it, so I never watched them. I will this weekend. And so now, like, whenever I saw that on Netflix, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be seeing him next month. Let's put this on. Not a clue what it was about. That man, he's gonna win an Oscar more than likely for that. And so I hope Marvel, if they plan on doing this, they lock him in, because if not, someone else is.
And you know what? Who's to say that? I mean, I don't expect any Spider-Man to die, but maybe if he does want to move on to bigger and better things outside of comic book movies, maybe he said, I'm going to come back for just one. So do what you want with my character. And maybe that could be a sacrifice to save the other Spider-Man, save MJ, who we know is going to be fallen. I don't know. I like I said, I'm so excited where it's going to go. And I'm so glad that we did sit down and watch these 3 to have
Yeah.
these characters fresh in our minds. We rumored, Tobey Maguire's come back. We rumored, and actually not rumored, we know William Dafoe and Alfred Molina are coming back as Green Goblin and coming back as Doc Ock. We know there's a Sandman in the movie, but that could potentially just be completely CGI. It might not even be the same actor from the 3rd movie. Do you foresee, I don't foresee James Franco coming back. He's been in some hot water. I don't see him coming back. Do you see Kristen and Dunst coming back? Do you see, is Aunt May's actress still alive? I think so.
I think so. I don't know for sure.
So
I
do you see these characters coming back besides the villains?
I want MJ to come back so bad. I want, oh my gosh, like I think that would be so perfect. I just want it like maybe just like a snapshot of them having like they have a family now or something. Like I I am a helpless romantic and their love story is a roller coaster, but to finally see them together and like she does a really good job. Like I for me personally, I think she portrayed MJ so freaking well. There was a rumor report that they were going to be in it, and even Gwen Stacy from Amazing Spider-Man. But apparently, due to COVID and such, that wasn't able to happen. I don't believe any of it. I don't because actors lie, studios lie. It's Marvel. If they want to be in this film, and again, if COVID did not prohibit it and they were able to make it happen, they're in this film.
Mm-hmm. Besides, I think Tobey Maguire and Alfred Molina as Peter and Doc are kind of stand out to me as like two of the best actors. But I think the other one that always stands out to me when I go back and watch these films is J. Jonah Jameson. Just performance there is so spot on. He looks the part, he acts the part, and I'm so glad they brought him back in, that just the reveal whenever he showed up in Far From Home, and now we know we're getting him again in No Way Home. J. Jonah Jameson, that's who should play him, and he wasn't, spoiler alert, he's not in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. There's not a J. Jonah Jameson because there's only one J. Jonah Jameson. So I'm excited to kind of see where that character goes from there and how they're really, changing up instead of it being from like the Daily Bugle newspaper. It's now more of a, an online. And I know I sent it to you. They have an actual TikTok right now that they're putting out for promotional stuff. So who knows what it's going to look like, but I'm interested to see kind of, hopefully we see some of those characters like MJ. I'd like to see her again. I hope you're right. I hope that even if it's a post-credit scene, we get to see her and Tobey Maguire being happy together. They deserve it.
There's so much potential, and that's what's so exciting and also so nerve-wracking because it's like we're bringing in like these other films, and like this is again, like I know I've said it, like this is supposed to be Tom Holland's film, and so I think as long as we fill in the gaps from the other two films, what the time gap, whatever that 15 plus 10 whatever years the difference is, it makes sense. It doesn't feel forced, and just everything is just cohesive. I think this film is going to go down as it has that potential. It has everything building up to it to be one of, if not the best comic book films of all time. I know a lot of people talk about the Batman trilogy that was filmed in Pittsburgh, partially. I again have not seen that. I know, oops. But I think this is shaping up to be something special, and it's a big part because of Tobey Maguire and his 3 films. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think we'd be talking about Spider-Man right now if we wouldn't have seen Tobey Maguire be the first live action in film Spider-Man. I know there was a TV show back in the 70s or 80s.
Yes.
But we have to give Tobey Maguire really the credit for his movie, kind of kickstarted the modern 2000s of movies. I know there were comic book movies back in the 1980s and 1990s, but Spider-Man kind of was one of the first, along with X-Men, that took it more seriously.
Yeah.
That looked at it more of cinema instead of just comic book films. So I really think we wouldn't be talking about we'd be talking about a third movie in a Spider-Man trilogy we'd have some hype about it, but we would not have anywhere near that. We wouldn't be doing a month of Spider-Man without what happened with Tobey Maguire. I'm so excited. And again, I hope our audience is listening and following along with the movies. So please watch Andrew Garfield's 2 movies this weekend if you can, because that's going to be next week, right?
Yes. Next week will be all about The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 with Andrew Garfield, which will be exciting. And then the following week, we will have our preview show for No Way Home, which is insane. 2 weeks. We'll be talking about that film. Hopefully, we'll also be able to squeeze in multiverse. That would be really fun. Timing kind of didn't work out, but that's okay. We'll try to maybe have a small conversation about it. That's one of the incredible films, one of the best animated films of all time. Steven, any closing thoughts now, wrapping up?
This was probably one of my favorite episodes to do with you, just because we had some great news stories. We had great discussion about 3 episodes of Hawkeye, half the series, and a great discussion on the 3 Tobey Maguire movies. And there's so much more we could talk about, but I'm sure our show is already super long at this point. So until next week, I hope our audience has a great time. I hope you are following along, and please send us your thoughts about Tobey Maguire films. Send us your thoughts about Hawkeye. because we want to hear from you. We want to get your voice on this show. This is a show for you by other fans, like JG and myself. So yeah, I can't wait to get back together with you next week, JG.
Yeah, like I said, each week it just gets better and better. I just, like I said, like now 15 weeks into this, which is crazy to think about. Like we found our flow, and it's just every week it's something I look forward to. And this special month celebrating Spider-Man is just the cherry to top the year. We will have more fun things that we'll talk about probably next week or a week after. There is going to be a lot of cool things that you guys can get involved with to celebrate this year that Marvel has had, which has been an incredible year, even through all of the stress that a lot of us have gone through and through a lot of the hard times. Marvel, for a lot of us, has been there to really give us something to really just to get lost in and to explore and to talk about these rich themes and these impactful characters. And so being able to talk about it even deeper with you every week has been quite a joy. And that does wrap up episode 15 of Marvelcast. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of Marvel with us. We want the fans, you guys, to interact with this podcast. We can't wait to hear your feedback and your questions. Email us at marvelcastpod@gmail.com. That'll be in the description. Please subscribe to 1138 Productions feed if you haven't, and leave a review wherever you listen. It does help the podcast out a lot. For me and Steven, have a marvelous week, and remember,
I could do this all day.